So the first speaker is Helen Atthowe. She, as I said, has been a farmer for a long time, and she has farmed in Maine mostly and also recently in California. She lives just 2 or 3 hours here in the Sierra foothills. The name of her farm is Woodley Farm, and it's all veganic. It doesn't mention it on the website, but it's all veganic, and they've done not only a lot of good work, but they've also done a lot of research on sustainability. So I guess she's here not only as a veganic farmer, but she's really here as an expert on anything you could possibly want to know about a better sort of, more biodiverse, more sustainable food system. So.
Thank you. Oops. There, is that on? That's on. Thank you for inviting me today to be part of this discussion, to join you in discussion about where we are going to go, because we live in exciting times. We have a lot of new information, and I think we are evolving. Our culture is changing. I feel it. I'm kind of old, but I feel it. If you're younger, I wonder if you feel where we've come from. But what's exciting, I think, is that I see a movement to reconnect our heads and our brains and our stomachs and our hearts, and I feel it. I also feel that there are a lot of problems and we have a long way to go, but the discussion has started about how we would begin to eat unselfishly, and I'm going to talk about things that I wouldn't get accolades from my fellow organic growers for doing. But I have enough empirical evidence now that people are inviting me and my partner, who is not a vegan, but has been farming veganically for the last 20 years and has been eating veganically for the last 5 years, but he doesn't even know it. So yeah, we were invited to speak at Edible Education, Michael Pollan's class.
Wow. That's great.
And I really prepared because, by golly, I was going to have the evidence. And it went over really well, and I was very peaceful in my presentation. But here I don't have to be. How many vegans? Okay. That's maybe the first time except in Northwest stuff, because you guys know already the things that you want to be avoiding when you either buy your food or we create a food system of our own. You know this already, right? Anything up there that we need to talk about in detail?
Yes, no.
I guess not. All right. So there's some scary things still. Monsanto's out there, and there is now a GMO sweet corn. This actually gets people's attention, and they start listening to the crazy lady who's been farming organically. First in Montana. It was actually Montana where I grew up, and now in California with this non-vegan vegan. Okay. So you know all of this. We don't want to use pesticides at all, because basically what I learned and why I started doing this, I grew up on a cattle ranch. And I just didn't want to pull those calves, you know, give them life. They were blue when they came out of their mothers, and we gave them life, and you feel like God, and then we kill them and eat them. So it became to me, I didn't want to kill anything. I wanted my agriculture to be what my teacher told me, Masanova Fukuoka, an unconditional effort to keep all things alive and growing. And when you start thinking about what that means to your heart, whoa. It's what one of my other friends said, true environmentalists kill themselves. But no, we're not going to do that. We're going to figure out how not to kill animals, not to kill insects. How do we farm organically with no certified organic sprays? And we can do it. how do we keep our birds happy? Because these are a really important, first of all, I love them and they make my heart sing. The second thing is they're a really important part of our biological control system at Woodleaf where we're orchard is. But you know what? There's war on birds in California the last 6 months. The new USDA rules for the food safety rules are making it so it is impossible to have birds anywhere near your food system. That's got to change. That's a clear policy we can work on today, tomorrow, and we can change with enough of this. We've got the evidence, again, that E. coli is not happening from birds flying through the lettuce patches in Salinas. We could talk all day about that, but we're going to just keep going on. We know about this, right? We're not going to use chemical fertilizers, but manures also, not only my research the last 20 years, lots of other research shows us that our organic standard manures will move through the soil and we'll have leachable nitrates, not unlike chemical fertilizers. We'll talk more about that. I don't need to say anything more because this is a whole group of vegans, right? I can't do that. I cannot live in a world where I'm not doing something about that. This is down the road from me with my buddies, the prisoners of war, next to my farm. And of course, other people are seeing other reasons why we shouldn't do this. This is the river down the road from that system. Now let's kind of delve even farther. So it's really easy to point the fingers at those chemical farmers, those non-organic farmers, those big farmers, those Monsanto guys. How about us organic guys? This is, believe it or not, a large organic farm I consulted on for about 6 months in Colorado. 2,000 acres of vegetables, 5,000 member CSA. Is this the system we want to create? Is this the diet we want to have? I would say no. We don't want lots and lots of tillage. We don't want to disrupt our microbial friends. Unconditional effort to keep all things alive and growing. It includes our earthworms, our soil microbes, and all of the beneficial insects and fungi and bacteria, actinomycetes that keep the soil healthy. I'm going to just zip right through this because I know the group we've got. I don't even have to talk about this, but I am going to move into organic agriculture because this is what we say. Whoops. What we say is, if you could read that, the production of crops and animals without the use of synthetic pesticides and fertilizers, healthy soils and environment, enhance biodiversity, ecosystem function, use renewable resources, manage the farm as a system. This is in our new federal our newish, for me it's new. I've been trying to do organic farming now for over 30 years. So our newish federal program, this is what we say, this is our goal. Do you think we achieve it as organic farmers? How many say yeah? Oh boy, not a single one. Well, there are some. But we don't have to. So, my friends, whom I love, by the way, I started out with organic farmers. If I hadn't been raised on a cattle ranch and realized that something was wrong and I didn't like to kill things, I want to say that organic farming is absolutely the best thing out there compared to the standard. So, let's all be very happy for organic. And now the rest of the story. So the rest of the story is that conventional organic uses animal parts and animal byproducts. And that not only did this hurt my heart, this is not sustainable. This is not good for the land. So we know about nitrate leaching. We know about E. coli and salmonella, right? You all know this, right? By the way, those persimmons that you're eating, those are one of the highest sources, certainly the highest vegetable source of calcium you can eat. You don't need dairy when you eat veganically raised persimmons. And I just have to have you look around and look how cute they are holding down the poster there. That is a new paradigm. Our calcium source holding down posters of a food system we can create.
Helen, I don't know about the nitrogen, the nitrate leaching into the groundwater.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, so even with cover crops, even when we take an alfalfa field and we till the bejesus out of it, and tillage, by the way, think of it in this term, you've got a blender, you've got your 2 favorite goldfish in the blender full of water, and you turn it on. This is not a good thing for keeping all things alive and growing. So when we till in the cover crop, the legume living mulch, for example, and God forbid we actually add then manure to that and till it in. On my farm in Montana, I had what I called the learning curve. I had nitrate nitrogen over the years going up to such high levels, parts per million, that conventional soil scientists said that wasn't possible. Without chemical fertilizers, I couldn't do that. Well, yes, I could, it turns out. Yes, I could. And so then I learned how to stop using manure compost. And by the way, my manure was composted. I never did straight manure when I was in the early 90s. Still, we got these high, outrageous levels of nitrate. I'll even tell you, just because I'm among friends, I was looking at in the springtime, over 100 parts per million in the soil, nitrate, nitrogen. Very high levels. So what happens, fortunately, I was trying to do reduced tillage, so I had these strips of living mulch, which I'm going to talk about much more later. So we didn't lose it all, but if you do that and you till, where does it go? Into the groundwater. So, there you have it. And we already talked about disease possibilities. The other thing that we as conventional organic farmers do, this was one of our little lettuce fields in the 2,000-acre Colorado farm. And in order to maintain that level of intensified production, we tilled in manure in the spring, and then we used liquid fish fertilizer sprayed on the crops to produce high yield and maintain our level of production. So we were putting animal byproducts on and then killing fish and spraying dead fish on our produce. Yeah. Yeah. And then we talked about the possibility of raising animals humanely. And I knew these chickens. I talked to them every day. I went past them on the way to figure out how we could do our farming system without spraying all this liquid fish and all of the organic certified insecticides. So these were happier chickens than factory farm chickens, but they still were killed when they didn't produce enough at the end. And even worse, that's a happy coyote. He's in my farm in Montana, and he's bowling. Create habitat and they will come. So you don't really recognize that, but he's looking into an onion patch that has the living mulch moving into it. It was sometimes hard to tell the crops and the non-crops in my field. But the coyote was in there bowling and mousing. That's what happened to the coyotes next to those lovely, happy chickens. Because they were sitting ducks for predators. And so they were killed at an unbelievable rate. So even if you're willing to go with happy chickens, and sometimes I am, I'm not willing to have this happen. And then the other thing that I learned, it was really a good thing for me to actually go from being a small organic farmer to an eco-organic farmer to trying to hang out with the big boys and do the big acreage stuff. Because I learned what some of those organic grocery stores, we won't name any names, but you know them. I had a whole load of lettuce, romaine lettuce, returned from one of those grocery store chains because there were 2 aphids that they found inside the heads. We had a 0 tolerance for any insects. At my farmer's market, I could get around that. I would say, oh, look, is this cool? We've got a syrphid fly larva inside this lettuce. He's eating the aphid, so this isn't covered with aphid. And they'd be objecting a little to having maggots in their lettuce, but because I was so excited, over 20 years, my clients got it. Oh, look, we've got a maggot in my lettuce. This is so cool. So, paradigm shifts, cultural shifts. This one has to change. We cannot even have organic. You cannot even feel comfortable buying organic. God, I'm going to be stoned when I walk out of this room. You're not really going to put this out on the internet, are you? If we don't talk about the ecological system in which we have to have some of the quote-unquote pest insects in order for the good guys to have something to eat so that they'll be there so that the web of nature will continue. If we have 0 tolerance in our grocery stores, we stop the web of nature. It's like cutting threads in a spider web, and the whole thing falls apart. Okay, so I'm a science nerd, and I actually do research, and so I'm just going to tell you what this says rather than, What we found that spraying organic insecticides, even certified organic insecticides, here is where we didn't spray. Here's where we let the system do its work. We had anywhere between 2 to 5%, 2 to 10% crop damage. I now say, with our farm in California here, that 10% is our ecological tithing to the world of nature so that we get to continue and to do this sustainably. So here's what happened when we had a little bit of insect damage, but we really made a great living. I'll tell you more about that later. Those are all the beneficial insects throughout the entire summer, happily living on. Can you tell every time we sprayed an insecticide here? Okay, sprayed, 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 sprayed. So some of the insects just totally fell off. The spiders, they're gone. Any organic insecticides, they're gone. Tillage too, they hate tillage. Some of the other insects still maintain populations, but they were lowered. This is even with our organic insecticides. So maybe you guys don't love insects as much as I do, but we need them in our system. And this is basically data just to show that spraying the selective organic insecticides like Bacillus thuringiensis is a way to start moving in that direction. Less insects were killed. All right. The other thing that we can change as consumers, if we want to eat unselfishly and try and connect our hearts and our stomachs, is that there are industry standards for quality. Again, I had sold mainly at the farmer's market and I had not had this. But when I was in Colorado, I learned that the industry standard for broccoli is to have Barbie broccoli. Basically, you want broccoli with a really big head and really, really, really skinny stem. Long, skinny stems. And then we fought to do that. We fought to do that. Why would we fight to do that? That doesn't make any sense. My Montana broccolis have these big old fat thick stems and my customers love them. So, or conventional organic, there it is. Lots of bare soil to control weeds and not have competition. I know you're frowning. This is it. This is certified organic ground. And we love organics, right? Can we all raise our hand and say that we love organics, please? So that I don't get, yeah, thank you. Okay. So we do, because it's so much better than what we have. But we can do better. We can do better than this. Remember, we want to maintain our soil food web. We want all of our microbes there. We've talked about this. So how do we reconnect nature, agriculture, and our own hearts. I don't know about you guys, but I always felt that I lived in this moral dualism. What does Gary Francione, help me with that. Francione, what's Gary's last name?
Francione.
Francione. He calls it moral schizophrenia. Moral schizophrenia. When I started not being quite so schizophrenic, I just was happier. So how do we do that? Well, this is what my answer was. And I think scientifically and morally, and my heart tells me it is a good answer for this new paradigm, this new food system, this diet, that we now are in this exciting world that we can rebuild. We've got 20 to 30 years of good data from organic farming now. We know what's been working and what hasn't working. We got a lot of data from the conventional side of it. We know that we can move in this direction. We can balance our existence with the natural world. We know some of the details. We know we want to reduce tillage, increase plant diversity, regular addition of plant residues. We don't, every system is not going to look the same. I do not know anything about urban agriculture. I really don't. I know a lot about small space agriculture, but you guys are going to figure this out. There are a few principles. These, I think, are some of the important ones for a new food system, for a one-straw revolution, as Masanobu Fukuoka says. So, there's my farm in Montana. Can you see the crops? All right, good. A lot of people can't. My neighbors used to say, Helen, when are you going to get the fields ready to put some crops in? And there it is. Those are a whole bunch of staked tomatoes. And we have living mulches, clover living mulches in between. There's never any bare soil. The soil is covered spring, fall, summer, winter. And what does that mean? All those lovely spiders. My next farm is going to be called Singing Spiders Farm. All those spiders, they have a place in the winter. Because we are not making a blender with spiders in it and turning it on. And then, how does the forest do it? How does the forest manage to produce all that biomass without having humans add lots of fertilizer? Who knew, right, that it could be done? Well, what the forest does is surface-applied residues, mostly 95%, probably higher, plant residues added regularly. So we would mow our living mulch, and thus we would have nutrient cycling. I'll talk more about that later. And you know, you really couldn't argue with our yield. I hate to brag, but I have the highest tomato yield in Montana. It's not saying much because there weren't very many commercial field-grown tomato producers in Montana, but we did this. We were able to do this.
When you say mowing, you're just talking about like after all the plants have died, just...
Oh, no, no, no.
What do you mean when you say
well, I'm going
mowing?
to talk more about that later, but what I mean, actually, is that I was strip cropping in between, and my living mulch, my clover living mulch, were the row meadows, and then periodically, every 3 to 7 weeks, depending on what time of the season and how fast the clover was growing, I would, like mowing my lawn, I would go there and mow it. I used to mow it a lot more in the beginning when I thought it should all look neat. And so the residues then would continue. We'll talk about the details of that later on, but that was part of the system. By the way, we also got improved cold tolerance. Have you ever seen 1 pound a piece red peppers growing in the snow? Habitat for beneficial insects. There's some clover I've let go to seed. That's yellow sweet clover creating habitat.
So is living mulch the clover? So is it the living plants?
Yes. Yes. I'm going to talk about this a lot in detail.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Because that, that's the fun part. But this is kind of, we'll zip through it. But yes, so this over here, so here's my mowed, probably this is white clover. This was the year before's yellow sweet clover, and it is now blooming. And what we're finding in that is create habitat and they will come. Anybody ever seen Colorado potato beetles on their potatoes or eggplants or tomatoes? Yeah, that is David and Goliath. So there is a predaceous stink bug eating that Colorado potato beetle, and I did not put him there. I just made him happy so he can. And I made the Colorado potato beetles happy too. They were there as well. You don't get to decide who lives and dies in an agroecosystem. You kind of learn the details so that you can shift the balance towards what you like. You still get to, play God a little bit. We had actually higher yields because we had more pollinators. We didn't kill them. So we had more pollinators. And so, again, we had this very high yield. So is this possible? That was a small, well, you guys might not think. My farm in Montana started out with 2 acres and then 6 acres of vegetable production. But can we do this on a large scale? There's a 10-acre broccoli field, and they gave me, a small field to play with to see if that living mulch stuff would work on a bigger scale. And it was harder, and we made a lot of mistakes, but we could move in that direction. I have total faith that we could move in that direction. Some of you younger people are going to have to help figure this out because I'm getting old now. But younger people can make this happen. So, to finish up, we've kind of looked at conventional chemical agriculture. We've looked at what I call conventional organic. We've looked at kind of where we could go. We're going to talk quite a bit more later in real nerdy details about the systems that I've developed in Montana and my partner and I have developed here in California. But what can we all do? What we can do, if we're not going to have big farms and farm them all veganically, is that we can ask our farmers the important questions. And I think the more we engage in dialogue, that would be civil dialogue, that we all think about what is possible and we make what is possible happen. One of my best friends in Montana raises sheep. I love her, even though she's not a vegan. But here's what she's done. She's developed what's called predator-friendly wool. What's that woman in Berkeley, that fancy restaurant? Chez Panisse.
Alice.
Yeah, Alice Waters purchases the meat from this farm, which breaks my heart, but at this farm, no predators are killed. That's one way of thinking about it if you're not a vegan. And then, of course, you guys already know all this, but I always end with this slide so that you can, you can go to the places where you can get more information, including my website, which is now going to be changed significantly because I need to tell you an exciting event. I told you we lived in exciting times. So we have just bought a new farm, 211 acres in eastern Oregon. We put our farm up for sale. We have a bidding war. In 2 weeks, we have 3 offers. We're going to decide tomorrow who gets the place. They're all going to farm in our image. None of them are vegans. None of them. They are all going to continue to run the farm veganically. You know why? It makes economic sense and it's sustainable. How cool is that? Thank you.